right, so good day, everyone. Thanks so much for joining this session. My name is Bao Yingdong. I'm a second-year MBA at Wharton School, University of Pennsylvania. Previously, I worked as an engineer, public policy professional, and also venture capitalist. Today, I'm very excited to introduce you our great panelist. Our topic today is about the role of foundations in implementing global change. And as previously introduced, we have three amazing panelists. One, we have Amelia Hapsari from Ashoka, and then we have Mame and Annan from Kontoor brands, and lastly, we have Arief Aziz from Climate Catalyst. So the way we're going to set up this panel is we will give our panelists some time to introduce themselves on a personal level and also introduce the organizations they're working for. And then we'll go deeper. We'll explore what are those pricing issues that they are most excited about through their works in the nonprofits and foundation space. And then we will explore the roles and responsibilities of organizations, communities, and individuals in driving global change. And lastly, knowing that we have a lot of students attending today, that's why we'll talk about the career path and options to let you know how can you land a career in the space. All right, without any further ado, let's get started with some more personal introductions. So how about we start with you, Amelia?
Hi everyone, my name is Amelia. My background is actually documentary filmmaking, but now I'm the framework change leader of Ashoka. We are building a world where everyone is a change maker. And actually, although Ashoka is initially focusing on social entrepreneurship, we are building this mindset of a change making from early age. So we work a lot with schools and young people, like many of the audience here.
Cool. Thanks, Amelia. And the next one, Mame.
Hello, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. So I'm Mame Annan, the Executive Vice President of Global Communications and Public Affairs at Kontoor Brands. I also am the President of the Kontoor Brands Foundation. And my background, I consider myself a citizen of the world. So I've been in global communications and public affairs for about 25 years. Started my career in studying sort of global development and economics, and went to the private sector for 10 years, working at JP Morgan Investment Bank. And that's where my experience began with respect to charitable philanthropy, leading the investment bank charitable giving strategy for JP Morgan, in addition to other roles in public affairs. Fast forward to today, I have the privilege of working here at Kontoor. We are the parent company of the iconic brands Wrangler and Lee jeans, and obviously have a responsibility to be good stewards of the environment as we produce these incredible products, but also to be good stewards of the community in which we live and work in my role leading the foundation. So looking forward to talking about how foundations can drive global change. Thank you.
Cool, thanks, Mame. And I'm sure our audience will be very interested to know you're switching from for-profit to a non-for-profit. We'll get there. And last but not least, Arief.
Yeah, thanks, Bao Ying. I think most of the introductions had been done by the MC, but one that wasn't noted was actually most of my career. I worked at Change.org Indonesia, which I co-founded back in 2012 with another person, and had worked there for almost 10 years, became country director. And in that decade, I consider myself extremely lucky to be working with the frontline change makers in the country, whether they were fighting for or against corruption, against sexual violence, to save forests, disability rights, all sorts of things. So I got to learn so many things about the landscape of social change in the country and in the world.
Cool, amazing. I think this is a really good overview about each one's experience, and I'm sure the audience have a lot of questions now. So let's dig in. The first part of our discussion is about those global pricing challenges, either climate change, either social justice, or other things. I would like to start with you, Arief, to know what are those global pricing issues that you are addressing now at Climate Catalyst, and what are those challenges you see on the ground?
Sure, yeah, and please do let me know, because I can talk forever about this. But please do let me know if I'm running out of time and taking other people's time. So I'll start with this. For the past 2 months, just a personal story of mine. I live in Jakarta, Indonesia. For the past 2 months, it has almost been nonstop that either my wife is sick or my son is sick or I am sick. And it's all respiratory diseases. In the past week, my son, which goes to the same school as Amelia's children, last week he didn't go to school at all because he was too sick. And I heard from the teacher that actually the class was only attended by 4 students, by 4 kids, because all of them are sick. The only kind of variable here is air pollution. In the past several months, the air pollution in Jakarta has been really, really bad. And that not only affects our personal lives, but it affects our work, it affects our education, it affects the economy. And this is just one example, right? Another example, if you live in Kalimantan or Singapore or Malaysia, you might have experienced hazes that might have been exported from Indonesia because of the forest fires, because there hasn't been rain for months and because it's too hot, right? In Indonesia alone, in the past 2 months, there are 31 cases of fires, not from forest and peatland, but from landfills, from waste landfills. Imagine being people that live in those areas. Not only do they consume smoke, but they're consuming smoke out of the fires of trash and waste and so many toxic things in there. And so these are all this is just one aspect of the consequence of the climate crisis, air pollution. There are other kind of effects. And it's because when people talk about the consequences of climate change, sometimes they kind of illustrate what the future will be like. Actually, it's not only the future, it's here, right? It's here. Every day you see the news about a part of the world being flooded or bushfires or natural disasters. And almost all of them correlate with the climate crisis, with climate change. I'll just leave you with one kind of statistic. So the United Nations have this kind of committee of scientists from all over the world called the IPCC, the International Panel on Climate Change. And so we've increased the global temperature right now at 1 degree. That means that it's now 5 times the instances of extreme weather events is 5 times the past century. We will reach 1.5 degrees. This is what we're trying to fight for, to not let it reach 1.5. But it seems that with the things that we're doing now, we will reach that as early as 2027. That's in not 4 years. We're almost done with the year. That's in 3 years. So we won't be kind of old and have grandchildren by that point. We'll all be still here. So it affects us, it affects students, it affects children, it's affecting the next generation, and it will bring more droughts, it will bring more floods and fires, and not only that, loss of habitat, extinction of animals, a food supply crisis if crops fail, conflict and all that kind of stuff. I don't want to scare you too much, but this is why we believe that this is a real pressing issue of our generation.
Cool. Thanks for sharing, Arief. So we can see climate change and air pollution is what keep Arief awake at night. How about you, Mame?
So thank you. I look at this from a number of different perspectives. So I'm originally from West Africa, from Ghana. I've worked in a number of different sectors in both corporate and nonprofit, everything from an investment bank to the World Bank Group, and even working on Sudan issues and mass atrocities and anti-genocide. So I've seen sort of the most pressing global issues of our time. I want to take this question from a Kontoor perspective. So as president of the Kontoor Brands Foundation, we feel, as all corporations, I think in our space, feel a responsibility to be, as I said earlier, stewards of the community and the world in which we live and work. And at our foundation, we spend a lot of time thinking about the pillars of our work and what our focus should be. And we centered on food insecurity, housing insecurity, and education. If you follow sort of the global demographics, there is currently a world food crisis, if you think on a global scale. If you look at the data, 800 million people go hungry in the world, and that's 10% of the global population. And in Greensboro, North Carolina, where our company is headquartered, we took it to the local level and did some benchmarking, and also see that in Greensboro, North Carolina, food insecurity is at an all-time high, almost above the national average. So people are going hungry every day. So I think that is the sort of a central issue for our work and our focus. And then the second issue, as I mentioned, is housing insecurity. The ability to put a house over your roof is the ability to take generations out of poverty. If our goal is to end poverty by 2030, according to the World Bank Group's end poverty goals. So we, as a company, work very closely in the community at the local level to try to help families escape intergenerational poverty through putting roofs over their houses, which will then have a multiplier effect in terms of also impacting how children are educated, how others enter the job force, et cetera. So looking forward to sort of digging deeper into these issues, but housing and food with the parallel path to greater access to education would be central to what we're doing now at Kontoor.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for that, Mame. And lastly, we have Amelia. Amelia, so what are those global issues, pricing issues you are now trying to address with Ashoka?
Yeah, you both have made my job easier. At Ashoka, we see that our generation right now is facing unprecedented amount of change. Like, the change is just accelerating. Like, compared to our previous generation, when before the technological, boom of, the digital world, the climate change that is now facing us, our generation, especially younger generation, is going to face more and more problems. And therefore, in Ashoka, we would like to scale the mindset and skills of change making. This is essential for human beings, since since when we were just sapiens, living against the wild. All right now, this change making has been the key skill and mindset that get human beings to overcome problems, to get them to collaborate, and in creating change for the betterment of the community. And so this is our mission in Ashoka, to create an everyone a changemaker world where every young person grew up with empathy and skills to create change.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks, Amelia. I feel among our panelists that we are pretty much carrying all the burdens from the world. So well done to everyone. And we want to look a bit deeper into what are those opportunities and also roles with different organizations. So how about this time, Mame, I'll start with you. We'd love to hear what are those opportunities Kontoor brands are seeing on the ground, and very importantly, how do you measure success of your impact?
Well, that's a great question. as I mentioned, we're a global company at Kontoor. We have 14,000 employees all over the world. Primarily, we have headquarters in Geneva, Switzerland. We're in Hong Kong. Also have a presence in over 66 countries, including in Latin America. So we take it very seriously. That I thought Amelia made a terrific point that the next generation faces extreme challenges. If you think about what's happening now with wars, global war time situation. We have refugee crises. We have climate change. We also have the residual effect of the COVID-19 pandemic and those sort of disparities that have been created in society. So to your question, how do, and I'll take it from a corporate perspective, corporations make an impact in these areas? I put out a call to action for any corporate leaders or foundation leaders who are listening to the call, and also to students, that your philanthropic dollars absolutely count. And if you look at the philanthropic market, I'll give you a really staggering statistic. The top 10 corporations in the United States of America contribute $2 billion a year to nonprofits in the United States. That is $2 billion of working capital that can change lives and transform communities. And in our way here at Kontoor, we comprise a percentage of that $2 billion a year. And we believe that directing that activity towards causes that can make a meaningful impact where you are on the ground is important. And that's why I talked about food security and housing security. The other way that corporations or individuals like those who are listening, the young, future leaders of tomorrow, can make a difference is through not just giving, but through your volunteerism, through how you participate with your community, going to schools, volunteering, mentoring. Our workforce is, as I mentioned, global, but incredibly committed and passionate to follow our mission, which is to take care of each other. That is our sort of our motto. And so it's on twofold. It's philanthropic dollars on one side, but then it's the transformational power of employees, of young people, of students who can put their feet to the ground and help the communities in which they live. And to answer your last question in terms of how do we measure success, I'm a student of M&E, so for the students out there who are the brilliant students who are listening, monitoring, evaluation, metrics, KPIs, we all love that word, or we don't. But we, in terms of how we track impact of our giving and our volunteerism, it's on two folds. One is there a link to, as I mentioned earlier, breaking the poverty gap, or the breaking the link of intergenerational poverty? If you give a major grant, can you track that over a 5-year period and see how communities benefit, how families are lifted above the poverty line? That's a very strong indicator for us in North Carolina and in our global offices on how we measure success. But then the other piece is more existential. It's are we creating a culture, a corporate culture, where employees love and want to work? And we know from the young people of today that it's much more important now than a paycheck, that you realize or you feel that the company you work for is absolutely committed to making a positive impact in where you work. So those would be sort of some of the themes that we look at when we're thinking about impact, but also making an impact.
Cool. That's great, Mame. Thanks for putting everything into a very, I think, tangible way to measure the impact, and also understand, what's your focus. This is great. Next, I'll move to Amelia. And when you mentioned about change making, one word really struck me, and that is about collaboration. Would you mind just talking a bit more about collaboration on different levels? Because I understand that, working in a nonprofit, you need to bring people on board, and that is not only just the government, but also private sector as well. Could you tell us a bit more about those stories on that front?
Yes. So in order to create the everyone a changemaker world, we identify key partners that we need to work with. And one are, we know that we want to work with the education sector. So we work with the Ministry of Education in Indonesia, and the thing is that the Ministry of Education believes that the traditional model of education will not be able to produce the leaders that can solve, the next centuries or the current century's problems, and therefore the school needs to shift from just teaching subjects to encourage students to identify problems and to create solutions. And therefore, it is, coincidentally, they really like our approach in bringing, change making mindsets and skills to schools. So we collaborate with them to transform middle schools into schools that produce change makers. We also collaborate with key school networks in Indonesia. A lot of faith also create schools. So, we work with Muhammadiyah, which, Islamic schools that has a network of 6,000 schools in Indonesia. We work also with Nahdlatul Ulama because their network has more than 25,000 like Islamic boarding schools in Indonesia. And we also work with the Bishop Conference because Catholic schools have around 2,000 schools in Indonesia, and these are groups of network of initially traditional schools who also want to transform their schools to catch up with the 21st century's challenges. And we not only we work with schools, we need to work with families as well. And how do we reach families? So initially, because Ashoka provides these awards, the Ashoka Fellowship, to system-changing social entrepreneurs. And we have around a network of 207 Ashoka Fellows in Indonesia. And some of them happen to have a network of women. And women are also mothers. And when we offer them our family change-making program, where the women actually can cultivate change-making mindset in families. These women organizations we're very interested in. So basically, we weaved in what our offer, what our network has, to the other kind of network of change leaders, and this is how we create the movement together.
I see. Wow, this is amazing. I feel there must be so many stories you can share about how do you navigate through those cultural, religious nuances to get the change, to make the change happen. This is amazing. And lastly, we have Arief, and Arief. The question is, can you talk a bit more about how do you implement change on a personal level? And I feel that you have a lot of things to share on both the climate catalyst side and also the change.org side. So feel free to jump in.
Sure, yeah. I mentioned that I was lucky enough to work with a lot of people on the front lines, like change makers. I'll just tell a story about one of them. This friend of mine came to me, I think in 2013 or something, and she said, I want to start a petition on something, because at that time Jakarta was flooding, and she saw plastic bags everywhere, and she realized that as a consumer, she had bared the responsibility of this because it was the plastic bags that she uses every day. And so she said, I want to start a petition so that when people shop, they pay for their plastic bags. That's it. That's a simple idea, right? And so we started a petition, got tens of thousands of signatures, and out of that energy that she kind of received from the public support, she started a foundation called the Plastic Diet Foundation. She got funding, she grew a team, she did campaigns online, she did campaigns on the street, and eventually they worked with the government. And after 3 years, the government decided, okay, let's do a national testing. Because you wouldn't believe the amount of people that were extremely opposed to that idea. The first idea was, why don't we charge people 1,000 rupias, which is not as big as it sounds. 1,000 rupiah is about 10 cents, right? 10 cents per plastic bag. And people, especially from the Association of Retailers, said, this is ridiculous. This is way too high. Our customers will not want to pay 20 cents, 10 cents for a plastic bag. And there are other people that said, listen, Indonesian people cannot live without their plastic bag. This is just simply in their culture and they won't change. Well, after those 3 years, the ministry decided to do a national test in 27 cities where you pay 2 cents per plastic bags, only 2 cents. And then the results came, and the results were that in these places, at least there is a 50% decrease of plastic bag consumption. In some places, even 70 to 80% decrease on plastic bags. Almost everyone said they prefer to bring their own bags rather than buy plastic bags. And almost all of them also said, listen, the price that they set was 2 cents, not 10 cents, but 2 cents. And everyone said that the customers said 2 cents is way too small of a price for a plastic bag. So this was such great news, but it took them another 5 years to actually get that legislation done. But what happened in those 5 years? These cities and towns that they were doing the testing, the leaders of these cities and districts and regions said, hey, this was actually a great idea, but it wasn't far enough. Let's ban plastic bags. So they started banning plastic bags in Balikpapan and in Bogor and in Bali and now in Jakarta. And now if you go to Jakarta or Bali or some of these cities, if you go to a retailer like a supermarket, they will not give you a plastic bag. So to the people that have said kind of like, oh, this can't be changed, this is just the culture, with a systemic change that starts with regulation in this sense, it actually absolutely changed the behavior of millions and millions of people in Indonesia regarding plastic bags. So that's kind of like how change starts. It starts with an idea and with one person and with a team and with public support and with energy, and everything kind of like goes from there. That's a story that I had.
Yeah, this is a great story, and I'm sure that at this point our audience could understand that those changes that everyone's working on, they are well needed, but also it is really hard to make those changes, and that's why I have a follow-up question to each of our panelists, and that is, through this process, you need to advocate for change, you need to persuade people. Then, what is your secret sauce? Either it's your skills, your experience, or other factors. So how do you make sure that people are on board? I feel Amelia, you're ready. So jump in.
The recipe? No, the recipe is nothing. The recipe is believing that now you can make that change. And instilling this belief that everyone can be a change maker, everyone can make this change. And people do. People like to be invited, and they like to know that they can.
I see. So it's really about the belief in others, and also, I guess, your own resilience when you have different people say no, but you trust that maybe the next person will say yes. Cool. What about you, Mame?
I would say, I think Amelia had a terrific answer, but I would say that have a passion, show the passion for what you believe in. I've been fortunate to have worked in some incredible global organizations with leaders that I followed because they showed an incredible passion for what they were working on. And so passion is contagious. That's what I would say. And so I think for people who know and have worked with me over my career, I certainly bring passion to my work, and also authenticity. When you walk through the doors of any organization, whether it's Ashoka or it's any other organization, be your authentic self, and share the issues that you believe in, and people will follow you, and organizations will rally around you, and you'll find like minds, and that's where transformation happens.
Yep. Passion. I really like that. And given that how hard change could be in this nonprofit foundation space, then I can see that passion is probably the only way to keep you going until you reach your goal. And lastly, Arief, what's your secret weapon?
Well, I actually have a workshop on this, and I usually charge. But I'll let you in on some things. And absolutely all of the above. Authenticity was the one thing that I was thinking about. Be authentic in telling your story and telling your passion, or telling other people's story. When you see kind of like social media, the stuff that goes viral is rarely the stuff that is highly produced. But it's a snapshot of something that's happening, or an amateur video that went viral, and all that. These, or just like someone talking to the camera and telling you their story. These are authentic stories, and they kind of like work, and they resonate with people. Secondly, it's persistency. It's not easy, as I said. Like with the story before, they started in 2013, and not until 2017, 2018 that they saw that their work had succeeded. And this is kind of like, this doesn't happen often for a lot of organizations. The successes, the impact are down the line. So yeah, be persistent, be patient, always kind of like learn more. Yeah.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. And I think just want to quickly comment on the authenticity part. It makes sense, especially in the climate change space, because these days there's still people who don't believe in climate change. And really, people have to be very authentic about the conversations, not driven by different goals, but just seeing, those are the catastrophic incidents where climate change really affects people across the world. So I think that is a really good point. All right, so now we're gonna switch gear, and knowing that our audience, we have a lot of students across the world, and I'm pretty sure that people are very excited about those present issues you are addressing with organizations, but also as students, where can they start? I think Mame, I'll probably start with you, given that you touched upon the volunteering side. But also, I feel from the very beginning, you always ask the story about how you switch your career from for-profit at Wall Street to non-for-profit. So can you fill us in?
Yes, so I'll try to keep it succinct. So first of all, to all the students who are listening, congratulations on continuing to step up. It's a really great organization, Ascendance, and the platform that they've created for all of us to come together. In terms of my career, I started, as I said, I thought I was going to work at the United Nations. I was at London School of Economics doing my master's, and thought I was going to go to the United Nations. And a mentor of mine told me, you can always go back to the public sector, but it's probably easier to start in the private sector and get that experience. And that was actually the best advice I ever got in my career. Mm-hmm. So instead of going to the United Nations, I was recruited to Wall Street and spent 10 years at JP Morgan. And I learned everything I know about how to be a corporate citizen and a leader from that perspective. And then the pivotal point in my career came as I was contemplating leaving JP Morgan, and the same mentor told me the best global leaders and communications and public affairs professionals have experience in different sectors. Do not be enticed by the idea that you're going to stay in Wall Street for your entire career. Try your path in different sectors and collect different experience, because you'll be that much more valuable to any place you work if you can be sort of battle tested and understand different environments. So I went from the role at Wall Street to Washington, D.C., and I spent about 8 years in Washington being asked to lead in different organizations, never applying for a role, always getting a phone call after a few years in a role. So I went from Wall Street to Sudan advocacy, lobbying the Obama administration for an end to genocide, coming from a financial services institution. Then I had the role heading up as a chief of comms at a think tank in Washington, and then ultimately at the World Bank Group, leading external relations for the private sector arm. But there was a common thread between all of the roles: global communications and public affairs, with the advice of my mentor to cut my teeth in various sectors. And as I now take this role after 2 years being at Kontoor, what I reflect back on is that when you're sitting in a boardroom or you're sitting in a conference room and someone throws a problem at you, you can always say, I've seen this problem from every angle you can imagine over the past years in my career. And that is the strength that I think I bring. And my advice to any young person watching this event is that be courageous in your career. Take on roles that challenge you and stretch you. Once you become comfortable, it may be time to make a change, and you'll be that much better for it down the road when you're in taking on increasing levels of responsibility, and that you becoming the transformational leader that you will be, in your career.
Yep. Really well said. And like one thing I really resonate is about just getting sign up for as many challenges as possible, especially in the early stage of your career, and try to get a diverse view across different functions and organizations. And next, let's go to you, Amelia. What's your like if your children wants to do what you're doing right now? So where do you tell them to start?
Oh, wow. It's easy. I encourage you to create your own initiatives. This is the tip that anyone who wants to join Ashoka, they will be evaluated by the kind of change they have created. So it's better if you start your own initiative. You solve a problem in your community. Create a club or anything that create change. This this kind of initiative can get you to many places if you apply, for master degree, for universities, and in your career, this will impress every employer, including Ashoka.
Awesome. Thanks, Amelia. And on that, Arief, what's your thought?
Sure. Yes. So a lot of kind of like when I talk to kind of like students, a lot of their fears, and sometimes they ask this question, but I don't want to be poor. I don't want to be broke. There is kind of like a stereotype that if you work in nonprofits, you're an activist and you're broke and all that kind of stuff. It's not true at all. In fact, it's quite a huge space. It's quite a huge sector. And as kind of like Mame had pointed out, there is a lot of funds, philanthropic funds, to have these organizations thrive and even compete to get the best talent, even from for-profit industries. And so you see now kind of like a lot of nonprofits trying to find work from tech startups, from finance institutions, and from banks, and from all sorts of different sectors. So you'll do fine. Just wanted to get that fear out. So it's kind of like any other job that or any other job in any sector. Having said that, if you're a university student, I think do what you do best. Learn, right? Learn about what issues tick you. It can be a global issue like climate change or poverty, or it could be like a local issues that you actually have experience in, or you see in your neighbors or in your local community. Because often it's best that we start where we are, because we know kind of like best on what's happening in our region. So once you kind of like start to explore, and once you learn about yourself on what ticks you, learn more about that issue, why that issue is happening, who are the stakeholders, who are the players there, why is it, what is like, who is part of the problem, who is part of the solution, what is the systemic change that's needed, and all that kind of stuff. After that, there are several paths, and Mame and Amelia had kind of like talked about this. You can start a campaign or start a business. Maybe it's a small one. There's one kind of like, I think maybe he's an Ashoka fellow, Sano, which started Waste for Change. Is he an Ashoka fellow? No.
No, we were considering him. Yes.
Right, one of the nominees. But he has an eco startup of waste management, one of the only and one of the biggest ones. And he started in his university to do kind of like, oh, let's do some waste management in the university and let's start a campaign around it. And he built this big empire. And my friend Tiza, which I talked about in the story earlier, it just started as a petition. And then he became the executive director of her own foundation. So that's one. But even if you don't want to go that far, you can certainly volunteer, like Mame said, or you can intern. You can start interning in a nonprofit or a foundation or a social enterprise and all that kind of stuff. So I think there is, once you start tuning in to not only the problems, the issues of the world, but also how you feel about it and what issues tick you and are you passionate and you want to solve, then everything kind of like follows. Just do internship, volunteer, start your own campaign, or whatever it is.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for that, Arief. And I couldn't help but comment on the point about you joining a nonprofit or foundation. It's not about you living a poor life, but actually it's about how do you be smart and personal experience.
I had one thing actually, like and you've seen this with Mame as well. Also, when you kind of like go into the nonprofit sector, you won't be stuck there. Mm-hmm. I've seen a lot of my colleagues and my friends that the skills that you get from a nonprofit, from the nonprofit sector, can be very attractive to other sectors. So you can go in and out. Mame did for-profit first and then nonprofit. I've seen people in nonprofit and then get hired in Google and Facebook and all these tech startups. So that point of being courageous with your career from Mame is a really good point.
Right, and I just want to add to Arief's point that social impact, skill sets. I've seen over the past, and I know Amelia and Arief can vouch for this. Over the past 10 years, has exploded as sort of a skill set that is valued, and so you're seeing co-COOs of major corporations who've come from the social impact space, because I think that type of thinking. It's a very sophisticated and transformational way of thinking that is needed more and more in organizations and companies. So to all the students out there, embrace the industry because it really is, I think, at the cutting edge right now.
Yeah, like CSR, ESG, DEI, all the three-letter words.
Yeah, they're not just fuzzy words, right? There's tangible actions everyone can take. All right, I'm cautious about time, so probably is the one last question, and this is probably my favorite question. Very punchy lines. I'll ask everyone, what's the best part of your job? Just one sentence, and then also tell me what is the worst, I would say worst, most challenging part of your job. So I'll start with Mame.
So I think the best part of my job is having a seat at the table in a corporation that is working to drive change, but also, make beautiful products. So it's incredibly exciting to have that opportunity and to have a voice and to be able to help to shape that future of such an incredible corporation. The most challenging part of my job is probably my job description. I mean, if you manage I lead ESG, government relations, global philanthropy, and global communications.
Wow.
So on every given morning, I wake up in the morning and there's a different challenge, whether it's, quarterly earnings or it's, a world crisis that's affecting inflation and energy. So.
Wow, sounds like you may still be doing the banking hours. Next one, Amelia, what's the best part? What is the most challenging part?
The best part is being inspired every day. So every day I met this, amazing change leaders from all walks of life. They can be housewife, they can be teacher, they can be, really great social entrepreneurs. So I'm inspired every day. The most challenging one is creating boundaries, because we're all human beings, right? We need to rest. We have families to take care of. We need to take care of our health and things like this.
Yep.
While the challenge is always there, and you want to create the change, so you want to face the challenge. Somehow also you need to create the boundaries.
Yeah, I think that sort of links to Mame's point. It's really a busy lifestyle. And lastly, Arief, take us home.
Sure. I have two good things about my job now. Well, one, I work remotely. I'm the only one in Indonesia, so it makes me quite flexible to take my son to school and play with him and all that kind of stuff. That's really, really great. But in the kind of like job itself, the most kind of like gratifying is hearing from other people how the work we do matter to them. I had this colleague at change.org, and he attended a protest about human rights, and it's particularly about I'll spare you the details, but it was about human rights, and it's a personal story. It's a personal incident, and only a handful of people came because it's not very a popular issue. And the person said to my colleague, "Well, listen, we know this is a long shot. We know this is a tough issue. But thank you for being here, because we often feel alone. And even though this doesn't work, at least we feel that some people care about us, and some people want to be on our side to fight this with us." Having said that, the biggest challenge is fighting pessimism, let alone pessimism from the world and from other people, but from myself. I mean, you can't help when you see when you see social media too much, or see the news headlines too much, which I'm guilty of from time to time. You can't help but think that, oh, this is happening, and now that is happening, and that it seems like the burden is against us. It keeps piling on. But yeah, I remind myself that there are so many people out there fighting for social change, for social impact, and it's working. The conversations that we're having now about climate, about waste, about poverty, about all of these things are very different from not only 10 years ago, 5 years ago. People are more educated, people are more passionate, people are more open to and educated about these social issues. So yeah.
That's a remarkable comment. Thanks for that. So on that note, it's time to wrap up this conversation. And I'm sure that to our attendees, you heard from our panelists about how belief, passion, authenticity, and also persistence played in their career till this point. And on behalf of the team and also our attendees, I want to thank our amazing panelists, Amelia, Mame, and Arief, for your time. Thank you so much. And
thank you so much, Bao-Ying. Thanks, Harsha and the team. Great job.
Thanks, Amelia, Arief.
Thank you, Mame.